Welcome into WarUp on a WPIAL. Greg Warnock alongside Jeff Upson, recapping this past week's wrestling and getting you set for what's to come here. This coming Wednesday, we have the Team Section Championships, and it'll give us a clearer picture as far as how those teams are going to be seeded for the team tournament as we get set for postseason wrestling action on the team side starting here this upcoming week. But before we get to that, we first want to talk about a couple of tournaments that happened over this past weekend. Not as many tournaments. We talked a little bit about this last week. You kind of got through the big tournaments from the holidays, and then the first of the year came with the county tournaments. But still a couple good tournaments to have this past weekend, and one of those happened at Burgettstown for the 2022 Burgettstown tournament, and Jeff will jump right into it. 106 pounds, Parker Senapal is continuing his great season. He is a champion. He defeats Giovanni Scipiani for North Hills 5-0 in the finals.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Parker Senapal and what he's been able to do since coming down to 106, and I think he's definitely going to be a force, especially in the region, and potentially the state. So 106 is a little bit more wide open, and I think he's just kind of showing that he is that guy down at 106. So it's going to be fun to see him. Scipiani, he comes back after losing at the Allegheny County tournament, takes second here. So I think he's getting back into form, if you will, especially now this is only the second time down at 106. But yeah, Senapal, I mean, we're going to be talking a lot of Burgettstown folks here. It's going to be like a broken record. Burgettstown this, Burgettstown that, especially when we talk about the Burgettstown tournament, but then we go into the team tournament. You're going to be hearing the word Burgettstown a whole heck of a lot during this episode.
Yeah, no doubt about it. 113 pounds, 3 AA guys go 2, 3, 4, but it was Brady Joling of Chartiers Valley puts it together to win the title at 113.
Yeah, and Joling wrestled Biano from South Fayette, who he had wrestled, I think, like 3 times already this year. So I'm sure that's getting pretty old for those two wrestling each other back to back. They wrestled in the county tournament. 113 in the WPIAL's a weird weight class. It's a deep weight class too. You look at Section 4. Section 4 is pretty stacked. Damai from Cannon Max there, Sheptick from Waynesburg, even TJ Allison from Trinity. So, 113, Joling's kind of been, he lost to McMillan from Peters Township, who's down at 113 now. So, it's going to be a kind of anyone's race here at 113 outside of Tyler Chappell, because Tyler Chappell is the front runner, obviously, state third last year. So Joling, on the other hand, he's been right there. So we're going to see in a few weeks what that really looks like for him.
Yeah, those guys could be, end up being 2, 3, 4, definitely at least 2 of those going on to the state tournament from that section. So will be interesting for sure. 120 pounds, James Anderson had a great tournament for South Fayette, finishing in 3rd place. Dylan Slovic of Burgettstown in 4th.
Yeah, and remember we talked about this last week at the county tournament, with 120 for South Fayette, they had Luke Dunlop and James Anderson both there, and Dunlop doesn't compete this weekend. I'm wondering if he's, descending down right to 113, 115, and wasn't quite there yet, so doesn't want to, screw up the descent plan and weighing in closer to 120. So James Anderson, though, I mean, he's right there. So it was a good performance for him. Same with Don Lindsay from Central Valley. Central Valley's got a couple guys on here that you're going to notice their names, and we don't talk a whole lot about Central Valley, but they have a few studs on their team.
126, Gavin Sweeka of Burgettstown. He was your champion. Also at 132, it was Joey Senapal of Burgettstown who was your champion. So both guys putting together strong performances to win gold.
Yeah, and you look back-to-back, obviously Sweeka at 26 beat a really tough kid from Pottsville. I love the fact that Pottsville comes from out east, District 11, Sammy Julian area, out to the Burgettstown tournament. It must be for the hospitality room. So I've been told that this have you seen the hospitality room there? I mean, I've only seen pictures.
I saw some pictures from this past weekend. It's impressive.
It's legendary. Like it's absolutely legendary. I'm kind of bummed that I actually had to work this weekend, so like my real job, and I couldn't I couldn't make it, but I saw pictures and I'm just like, man, I can see why teams come back. So that's probably why Pottsville makes that drive out. But Suica beating Monger, really good win for him. Aiden Burford from Highlands takes third. Joey Senapal obviously follows that up, beating Braden White. Highlands has, and Highlands is going from AAA down to AA. They've been kind of back and forth, but the next cycle they're down. I'm looking for Aiden Burford and Braden White to really make an impact, not only this year, but for years to come, the next cycle here. So, they battled. Bryce Rodriguez battled Nick Jones from West Allegheny. I think Nick Jones is still coming back from being off and being off the mat for a little bit. So, I think he's still getting back to form, and they're going to need, West Allegheny is going to need him to perform at a high level for the team portion for sure.
138 pounds, Ambrose Bonai of Central Valley. Haven't seen too much of him, Jeff, but he comes away with a championship at 138.
Yeah, and this is, one of the guys that I've been talking about from Central Valley, and Bonai is one of those. And the guy he beat in the finals, Parrish McFarland from Pottsville's a super tough guy. He's been battling in District 11. He's been close to making to the state tournament. Still young, and Bonnie, came out, beat him decisively 7-2. So, Central Valley, again, we don't talk a whole lot about them, but they've got a couple guys here that I'm looking forward to seeing how they do in the postseason. And Rudy Brown from Burgestown takes fourth. Rudy Brown's going to be an important part of this team, going forward for the team portion of it. I think Rudy Brown could have one of those impacts that we saw, year in and year out for Burgestown against Burrell. He's one of those guys I think's got to come up big. If he wrestles well, I think the team's going to be in a much better position.
145 pounds. Actually, the next three weight classes, all West Allegheny. Ty Waters ends up dominating to win gold at 145.
Well, I mean, is it a surprise there?
No, not at all.
I mean, it's certainly not a surprise that Ty Waters comes out and fall. He's just a hell of a lot of fun to watch on the mat. There's no doubt about it. He's just fun. He's a fun wrestler. He kind of lets it fly. And Drake Burford, who we saw kind of let it fly at the Allegheny County tournament, right? I mean, fall over Brandenburg, and then he pins Stipetich in the final. So, and 145 wasn't bad. You had Cody Hamilton from Grove City, who's not bad. Riley Nealon from Greenville, who's pretty tough. Chase Brandenburg from Carlington was there. But Ty he's dominated, right? Which we're going to talk about the next three weights for West Allegheny. These three, 145 through 160, I don't know if there's a better 1, 2, 3 punch in the middle of the state with Waters, Taddy, and Taylor.
Yeah, Nico Taddy ends up winning 152 and also impressive fashion, getting a fall in the semis over Lancaster Burgestown and a tech fall over Swartz at Greensburg-Salem in the final.
Yeah, I mean, obviously not one of the deeper weight classes was 52, but Caden Brock is a tough wrestler from Elizabeth Ford, and Lankos from Burgettstown, another guy like Rudy Brown, who I think's got to really show up for the team portion to make an impact. Ben Cedar from USC was there as well, but Taddy's. He's one of how many at 152 in the WPIAL that's vying for a spot, and we talked about it before we went live, and with Laffey, Evans, Pletcher, you Kranitz, you have all these guys in there. Taddy's kind of that guy who, not saying he's on the outside looking in because he has a win over Pletcher, but we haven't seen him. We didn't see him last year, so it's hard to say where he's going to be. And man, he's like the guy. I think he could end up winning it potentially. And it's 152 is going to be a lot of fun to watch, and individually for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you got 5 guys, only 4 are going to go on. Of those 5, they're ranked top 6 in the state. So,
right.
Yeah, that's just it's going to be insane for sure. 160 pounds, your champion was Shawn Taylor of West Allegheny, and he won by fall over DJ Slovic in the semis and by major decision 14-3 over Chris Beatty of Chartiers Valley, who just won an Allegheny County title in the finals. Taylor was on fire. Also of note, Braden Welsh of Fort Cherry had a big win over DJ Slovic of Burgestown for third.
Yeah, I mean, you look back at 160, and 60 was tough, with Taylor obviously leading that charge, but that gap between him and Beatty. This was a match I was looking forward to seeing, because Beatty is obviously a guy with more experience in high school than Taylor, and Taylor just took it to him. You and I talked about this before the show. It's just like, Taylor's just been coming out of just left field and dominating this year and having such a good year. And, last year he had a shortened season. So I'm excited to talk to him tonight just to, see how his progression has been going. And if this kind of burst of relevance is what he expected coming into the season. But you look at 160, Braden Welsh, like you said, from Fort Cherry, I think he's going to be a guy that, whether he's a freshman or not, guys aren't going to want to wrestle him and see him across the mat because obviously we saw what he did to DJ Slovic, who's a pretty tough, wrestler from Burgettstown. And he pinned him to take third here. So yeah, it was a really, deeper weight class for the Burgettstown tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously we'll talk more about them, but let's first see if we can get Shawn on the call with us to chat a little bit about his weekend and obviously the whole season as well, like you mentioned. Having a great season thus far. And Shawn, thanks for joining us on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Well, let's first and foremost, before we kind of dive into this past weekend, we just wanted to talk a little bit about, your season overall. You came out and had a great showing at the Powerade tournament, kind of put your name on a map, even back with Eastern areas as well. Just a great start to the season, and you obviously carried that into the new year and into January. Just kind of talk about your season and how you've kind of settled in.
Yeah, well, this season, one big thing I did to just be better than everyone is fix my diet. Like, I feel like ever since I fixed my diet, it just changed me, like, overall, totally.
And obviously last year, probably not the season you wanted to have, had some injuries going into it. And then obviously a tough weight class as well, 145, in your section with just the changes that they had. You had Kellen Laffey and Max Stediford, two very tough opponents to get past to be able to advance on. So obviously with the condensed postseason, that made it difficult and ended your season early. But did you learn a lot from last year to carry into this year?
Yeah, in the summer, I put in a lot of work with my teammates and stuff like that. I didn't want last year's season to happen again in this season, so I just put in a lot of extra work and focused on the little things. And then, yeah.
And you had a great weekend at Burgettstown, winning first place. Obviously, a couple of big wins. You had a fall over DJ Slovic of Burgettstown, and then a major decision over Chris Beatty of Chartiers Valley, who had just won an Allegheny County title a week ago. Talk about your weekend and what went right for you.
I was just wrestling hard throughout the whole day. And semifinals match was harder than the other ones, but I still got the pin. Finals match, I was watching Beatty wrestle. I saw, I knew I was gonna win. I was just looking at the way he wrestled. I felt like I was just much better. I knew that if I got my fakes off and got it moving, then he wouldn't be able to stop me. I felt like he was gonna use his strength against me, so I just used my quickness and capitalized the win.
Shawn, I think a lot of people kind of forget that you're only a sophomore. And, I look back at when you started your high school career, because you're a name that, definitely had my attention coming up through the junior high ranks. But your first varsity match of your career was against Wyatt Henson.
Yeah.
What was that like? When when you're like, come on, coach, like I'm really, this is it. Like this is the match you're throwing me out against Wyatt Henson, the number one guy in the nation. Like, was that a nice coming out party for you, going against Wyatt Henson?
Yeah, honestly, I feel like I wrestled pretty well that match. Like I got on his legs like 2 times. I almost finished once. So I feel like I didn't wrestle too bad, but it was like my first varsity match ever, and I was like, okay.
All right.
Nothing to lose here.
Right. No, exactly. Nothing to lose. And it's those little battles, like you said, like touch, get into his legs. Clearly that's a big step. So fast forward to this year, over the summer, I had heard, that you were putting in work. You had a pretty good Super 32 tournament. Talk about that, because I thought that was really when you caught my attention. Like, okay, he may be a somebody to keep an eye on this year, especially after knocking off as many wins as you did down the Super 32. You and Ty Waters both kind of did. Was that a confidence booster for you to say, hey, like I can hang with some of these guys?
Yeah, for sure. Super 32 helped out with my confidence a lot, because I felt like that was something I lacked with last year. And whenever I went down to Super 32, got a few nice wins, it like boosted my confidence a lot.
Now, coming into this year, you start out with Eastern area. You have, again, kind of like last year, you right off the bat, you get Jared Kessler of Connellsville, who's, going to Pitt, two-time state medalist, clearly a guy that a lot of people know. You were right there with him, right?
Yep.
Then the next week you knock off Enzo Merlacci, who beats Kessler in the final of Eastern area. So, now all of a sudden you're like, all right, Shawn Taylor's, I'm right there, right? So my question is, what did you take away from that loss with Kessler? But then also when you ended up beating Enzo, where you're like, man, I really am right there.
Yeah, so after the loss with Kessler, I was pretty disappointed, even though the match was like pretty close. I felt like I controlled most of the match, but again, he's a very good wrestler, and he did a lot of work on top. One thing that I took away from the Kessler match is I need to start being tougher on top. I feel like that's something I'm lacking this year. So I've been working on top a lot recently, and I knew Enzo, whenever I was gonna wrestle him, I knew it wasn't gonna be an easy match. But again, I knew if I got to my shot, if I got one good takedown, I knew I could finish off the match.
And then obviously Powerade, you kind of burst on the scene once again. You had a win over Jack Moyer from Chestnut Ridge, and then you, I think, rattled off like 4 or 5 wins in the wrestlebacks. They beat Dom Federici from Wyoming Seminary, dropped a match to Holden Garcia from Notre Dame Green Pond, who was, he's been nationally ranked before. Coming into Powerade, much like Super 32, you had to feel pretty good, and then even better afterwards, knowing like, hey, I just placed top 6 in one of the toughest tournaments in the nation, against obviously some of the best competition.
Yeah, like I knew I could do this the whole time. Like I was looking at they had predictions on like who's gonna place where, whatever, and I was like, this isn't right, like at all. Like I knew what I could do. My teammates and my coaches, like I believe in them, like I trust them, and they know what they're doing, so I knew what I could do at Powerade.
And obviously you have a great workout partners in the room. Just talk about what it's like having Ty Waters and Nico Taddy just to roll around with day in, day out.
Yeah, those are some of the top guys in PA, Nico placing at States his freshman year, Ty making it to States, and like rowing those guys every day, it just helped, and took me to a whole different level. So those guys, they're the real deal. Without them, I wouldn't be the wrestler I am today. So.
And obviously for your team as well, you guys are going to enter the section tournament, and then obviously the team tournament the following week. Just talk a little bit about the growth of West Allegheny, and what you guys are expecting here as you head into sections on Wednesday.
Yeah, this year the team has grown together, honestly. I feel like we're becoming more of a family this year. We're picking up some big wins. Like we beat Kiski, that's a really big win. I was telling the guys, like, listen, that's a really good win, and like we can only go forward from there. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, hey, congrats on the championship this past weekend, and as well as the success you've had so far. Obviously, you're not done, and I'm sure you know that. So best of luck as you head into the postseason for team, and then obviously individuals.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks, Shawn. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
And now we move into 172 pounds, and thanks again to Shawn Taylor for joining us on the show. At 172, Mikey Ewing of Washington finished in second place, Jeff.
Yeah, and Ewing recently committed to Seton Hill. So Washington, had two runner-ups here. So Mike Ewing was right there with Logan Gross of Maplewood, who's not bad at all. So good showing by Mikey.
189 pounds, the highest WPIAL finisher was Brennan Morgan of Central Valley. He finishes in second place. 215 pounds. You had your champion, Josh Sarasnik of Chartiers Valley. He had a really strong tournament, beating Vitaly Daniels of Bentworth for the championship. And at 285, it was Billy McChesney of Greensburg-Salem with a big win over Cam Carter-Green of Washington, 5-2 for the title.
Yeah, and starting at 189, Cole Karpinski is the number one guy in the state. So he's one. Patrick Kutchember's number two. Karpinski, I really was excited to see Brendan Morgan and Karpinski because Karpinski's he's been lights out. We saw him at our tournament, the Surge, winning that, and being the number one guy. He was a state medalist last year. Brendan Morgan, much like the Central Valley guys we were talking about before him, he's going to be fine. He's going to be right there in the mixed. 215, Sarasnik, I thought had a great tournament. Considering Allegheny County tournament, I don't think he wrestled his best. He comes out and just dominates Daniels from Bentworth, who's really good, beats him 12-2, and 215 was a pretty deep weight class. You had Govern from Southmoreland, Chismer from Greensburg-Salem, who was also there, Mitchell Cook as well. Excuse me. So 215 was a deep weight class for Sarasnik to come out and win. I was impressed with that. And, of course, 285, Billy McChesney we know what he is, right? He's an undefeated senior. He's headed D1 to Columbia. He's a returning state medalist. He's one of the top guys in the state, period. So for Cam Carter-Green to come in there, I think this was a good test for him, right? Because he's a guy who missed all of last year. He's still trying to prove himself, right? And having matches with guys like McChesney these are good matches for him, especially when you talk about the region that he's in, because the region is a little bit more wide open and certainly than the state is. So for Cam to come out and get a second place finish here, I think it was important for him.
Burgestown wins the team title, 217.5. West Allegheny was second with 179. Highlands was in fourth with 125 points. Talk a little bit more about Burgestown here a little bit later on in the show. Let's move over to the Brook Classic, also happening this past weekend. Seneca Valley was there, Trinity, Hampton, among the WPIAL schools. In 106 pounds, Connor Smith of Seneca Valley finished in second place. Zane Garner of Trinity in sixth place. And just kind of lump them together, Jeff, 113, Tyler Chappell of Seneca Valley. He was your champion. And TJ Allison finished in fifth place from Trinity.
Yeah, and Trinity and Seneca Valley, I think both had good tournaments here. Connor Smith loses a tough one to Matt Dolan of West Virginia, who I've seen a number of times in his career. He's really tough, so not a bad loss there for him. Zane Gardner from Trinity coming away with sixth place. But Tyler Chappell, he had a tough win over Cyrus Hurd from Cathedral Prep, and 6-4 was the final there. Hurd's only a freshman. I've heard a lot about him coming from that area, and I know a lot of people are excited about his future ahead of him. So this was obviously a good test for him. But Chappell, he's that guy. Tyler's he's not going to go away. He's always going to be there. He's going to continue to wrestle hard and, get big wins. And, I'm not surprised to see him get a big win over, a pretty talented freshman.
No one at 20 or 26, but at 132, Blake Reener of Trinity, he finished in second place. And at 138, Robert Allison of Trinity finished in second place as well.
Yeah, I was super excited to see Robbie Allison back in the lineup. He has been out for a while. We haven't seen Bodie Morgan yet this year, so I'm not sure on the status on him, but I'm hoping we get to see him back. But Robbie Allison comes out, finishes second. It was a sudden victory loss in the finals there. And Reener, same thing. Loses a tough one, 9-6 in the finals, but he finishes ahead of Sam Stab from Cathedral Prep, who's pretty tough. So. These Trinity guys, I've seen them a few times this year, Midwinter Mayhem, and a few others, and they're really impressive. Those young guys, they battle hard. So it was really good to see Robbie Allison back in the lineup for the Hillers.
145 and 152, no place winners. 160 pounds, Adam Gill of Trinity finished in 5th place. Marshall Adamson of Seneca Valley, he finished in 6th place. 170, Manuel Santos of Seneca Valley finishing in 3rd place. Also Brooks Barris of Seneca Valley in 6th place.
Yeah, and Seneca Valley had multiple entries in a few of these weight classes, and I'm sure they were happy with their finish and where they're at. Santos obviously leading the charge there, taking 3rd at 170 pounds. And we talked a lot about him last year. We haven't talked much about him this year. Seneca Valley's on kind of a downswing, right? They were the talk of the town for a lot of years in the WPIAL, and they just don't have that team this year. But Santos, I think he could be one of those guys that come the individual postseason, he may surprise a few people, considering we just haven't talked a lot about him, or we haven't seen a whole lot of him.
182, Jaden Resch of Hampton, he finished in 2nd place. Aiden Hayes of Seneca Valley, he finished in 6th place. 195, no one medaling there, but 220 pounds and 285, back-to-back champions for the WPIAL. Liam Volklaus of Seneca Valley, we haven't talked much about him, Jeff, but he's at 220 pounds, and he was a champion here at this tournament. Also, Brennan Anderson of Trinity finished in 8th place, and a 285, Ty Banco of Trinity, he was your champion, and Nate Glock of Hampton was in 6th place.
Yeah, so the return of LVK, super excited to see Liam back on the mat. It's been a while. He's, obviously crushing it in the classroom. There's not many people. I think there's like 0.5% of high school students that actually score perfect scores on the ACT and SATs. He's one of those. So clearly he's doing something right. He doesn't need wrestling to succeed, no doubt. But it was great to see him back. Back in the lineup, 220 pounds. They use the weights because Pennsylvania's weird and we use our own weights. He'll be back at 215 pounds. So he adds, certainly depth at the 215-pound weight class. We talked about it last week with Finnerty coming up. Is he going up? Is he going to go down? We're not sure, but having Liam back is pretty big. And I think they were kind of waiting for him to be 100%. And, I think this is a good time to release him. Banco at 285, all he does is win. Fall for Ty Banco. So, again, he and Noah Tustin back and forth. The question is, can any of them push Billy McChesney? That's obviously the question I have for the WPIAL. But, really great to see Liam Volklaus back in the lineup for Seneca Valley.
And outside of that, there was a dual tournament that happened this past weekend, as well as it was the Clearfield Bison duels. A couple of WPIAL teams in that one. Butler finished in 5th place. Hempfield area finishing in 8th place in that one. But the big one was that they wrestled each other, Butler and Hempfield, and Butler was the winner, 39-26. And that was to cap off what was already a great week, which we'll get to here in just a little bit. But Butler with a big win over Hempfield, 39-26.
Yeah, we're going to talk about it. Butler's they had a great week, right? Getting the win there at the Clearfield Bison duels, which was a really tough dual tournament. Looking through the teams there, obviously this was a heavy dual tournament weekend. You had a lot of teams competing in dual tournaments, including Connellsville, who went to wrestle Blair, Bergen, and Wyoming Seminary, which we can talk about later. But Clearfield Bison duels had a lot of tough talent. Clearfield wrestled really well, I thought, but Butler, and that was without Cooper Baxter too. Cooper Baxter was not in the lineup for them. I'm not sure what the situation is with Cooper, whether he'll be in, but he's going to add some serious depth to them should they get him back and wrestling. But I was impressed with Butler. Getting the win over Hempfield was huge, and overall they're looking pretty good coming into the team postseason.
Yeah, and speaking of, the field is set. The section tournament coming up this week. So top 4 in each section move on for both AA and AAA. That's a little bit of a change. Used to be top 5 in AAA would advance, but they now have that down to 4, as well as AA as well. It used to be a top 5. Now it's down to 4. But A lot of good wrestling from this past week, and you'd start at the top in AAA in Section 1. Franklin Regional was able to defeat Penn Trafford 43-29, and Norwin had the big win over Hempfield area 37-31. So that takes Hempfield out of the team tournament postseason and out of section play. So you look at Section 1, the B teams will be hosting. Or I'm sorry, that was in Section 2. My apologies, Norwin Hempfield. But Section 1, the B teams will be hosting. So it's at Franklin Regional. Armstrong against Franklin Regional, and Penn Trafford will wrestle Kiski.
Yeah, so when you look at that, and I didn't want to interrupt you because I know how you get on your roll with your sections, and I certainly don't want to step on your toes. So I didn't want to say anything. But, yeah, you look at Section 1, clearly we saw that Franklin Regional Penn Trafford match. I thought that was going to be a close one, but wasn't surprised to see Franklin Regional win it. Let me ask you, Greg, who do you think comes out of Section 1? I think Franklin Regional makes it to the finals. Who do you think comes out of Kiski or Penn Trafford?
Well, I mean, I think that one's a toss-up. I'm going to go with Kiski in that one, and then I like Franklin Regional to come away with the Section 1 title.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's – I mean, obviously, I think that's certainly a possibility. I think it depends on who's in the lineup for Kiski. How they get guys healthy. Is Dom Giordano going to be in the lineup? Is Stone Joseph going to be in the lineup? Is Mark Gray going to be in the lineup? So, with a full complement of the Kiski Cavaliers, I think they can certainly win it. But I also wouldn't be surprised if Penn Trafford comes out and wins against them, and then we have a Franklin Regional versus Penn Trafford rematch. So obviously Franklin Regional being on the top, they certainly have the easier path against Armstrong. But I think it could be three teams here. I think Franklin Regional or Kiski area have a good shot of winning it.
So as I mentioned previously in Section 2, the big match was Norwin and Hempfield. Norwin won 37-31, takes Hempfield out of the team tournament. So now at Latrobe on Wednesday, it'll be Thomas Jefferson against Latrobe, Norwin against Connellsville. And, Jeff, we're going to get the matchup that we're excited about, Latrobe and Connellsville at Latrobe on Wednesday.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we don't want to look too far ahead because Latrobe's got to get past TJ and Norwin, Connellsville's got to get past Norwin. But, if nothing goes crazy, we should have that top 5 matchup in the state going down. And, man, that's going to be a good match. That's going to be a lot of fun. I think this is a match that is going to come down to the flip, the starting weight, and obviously bonus points. I mean, that I feel like that's the easiest way to explain it, but obviously there's a lot more that goes into it. Latrobe, though, man, they're peaking at the right time. They got Gabe Golden back, they got Nate Roth back, they got just a lot of energy, a lot of momentum coming in right now. Connellsville, they're dangerous, man. When they wrestle, then, and they're just going to be. This is going to be a dogfight. There's going to be these guys are going to go out there and scrap for 6 minutes, 6 hard minutes, hard hand fighting, hard collar ties. This is what Westmoreland County's wrestling and Western Pennsylvania is all about. Is watching Connellsville and Greater Latrobe go at it. So, but again, in the early rounds, there's going to be some good matches in the early rounds. Latrobe versus TJ. There's going to be some good matches in that. I don't think TJ has enough for Latrobe, but there's going to be some individual battles there. And same with Norwin and Connellsville. Norwin, I was very impressed with against Hempfield. Coach Kyle Martin, he's one of the best there is. I think he's just, he gets it, right? He's going against his alma mater, right? He's going against Connellsville and Bill Swink, who's a legendary figure in his own right. So, there's a lot of backstory to a lot of these matches too. So I'm excited. Section 2 is clearly the deepest weight or deepest section here in AAA. So it's going to be a lot of fun to see how this all shakes out when it all goes down this week.
You mentioned Connellsville and the duels they had this past weekend. Hopefully they're not too banged up from them, but do you think they took a lot from it to carry over to Wednesday?
I think so, right? I mean, I don't think, looking at how they competed, I mean, look, I mean, Bill Swink, what he did at Colonial Forge and what he was able to do over his career was go after the best talent, and wrestle the best guys week in and week out. That was the recipe for success. So I was not surprised at all to hear that they were involved in that. So, I don't think they're really, whether they're looking back at this past weekend or looking forward, it doesn't matter. I think they're going to come prepared and come to wrestle, and it's only going to make them better especially for the individual portion of it. So, looking at the matchups though, Connellsville and Latrobe, it's going to be close, man. It's going to be close. I think Latrobe has some more, gas in the tank. I think they just have a few more answers and a few more guys that I think are going to be able to not give up bonus points and then, potentially get some bonus points. Connellsville versus Canaan Mac, I would go back and look at that match. And as I said, that previous show was a lot of things went right for Canaan Mac in that match. For Connellsville, everything's going to have to go right for them in this match against Latrobe. There's no doubt about it.
Moving on to Section 3, the big matches were both on Tuesday and Wednesday night as Butler had a pair of big wins. They defeat West Allegheny 49-24, and then they defeat Seneca Valley 34-32. That gives them the subsection 3A title, but it also knocks Seneca Valley out of the postseason. So Seneca Valley not making a trip back to the team tournament after their runner-up finish. And now at North Allegheny, we're going to see West Allegheny against North Allegheny and Pine Richland against Butler.
So let me ask you, Greg, when you look at this bracket, I mean, how do you what is the end bracket going to look like? What do you think? Because NA versus West A, who do you have there? Greg, was my question to you too intimidating that you had to hang up?
I guess so. I mean, it just said all you said was, "I have a question for you," and then I lost you.
Well,
so.
I think you hung up. The question I had for you was, how do you think Section 3 shakes out? North Allegheny versus West Allegheny. That's, to me, a toss-up, right? I don't know who's going to come out on that one. I'm curious to know what you think, and then you ended up hanging up. I mean, that's, at least tell me, like, hey, I'm ghosting you. I'm out. Instead of just clicking and doing the Irish exit.
I mean, I can't do anything whenever I can't even hear your question. But North Allegheny, I like them over West Allegheny. I think West Allegheny, we talked about it with Shawn Taylor. He's got they obviously they're stacked in the middle. They have a lot of strength, but North Allegheny's they're balanced. They have a couple of really great wrestlers, but they're tough in every weight class. They're going to give you a battle. Especially, if West Allegheny had kept it closer with Butler, I would, maybe go the other way, but I like North Allegheny there. And obviously I like Butler over Pine Richland, but yeah, that North Allegheny Butler one, I think that's going to be a dogfight. I could see either team coming out on top on that one. Butler's just so hot right now. They're wrestling. They're peaking at the right time, and just doing some phenomenal things. Boy, I don't know, Jeff. It's really a coin flip, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm kind of in the same boat. I think North Allegheny wins against West Allegheny, although I don't think that's a given. I still think it could go either way. North Allegheny, they beat Pine Richland on criteria. Now, of course, they have A.J. Rohan back in the lineup. We got to see him at the county tournament, so that helps tremendously. But I think I agree with you. Butler has been just peaking at the right time. Now, I think it really does – it's contingent on Cooper Baxter, right? Cooper Baxter, if he's in the lineup, I would say Butler wins it. They win the section championship. Without him, I think they're going to have to do some creative movements to get some right matchups for North Allegheny, because North Allegheny wrestles pretty much straight up. I mean, they can do a little bit of shifting, but for the most part, they're wrestling straight up. Butler, man, like you said, they've been peaking at the right time. I can't pick against them after the week they had. But Cooper Baxter is a key component to that. He's in. I think they win it.
Yeah, you think about it, they beat Hempfield, by double-digit points without Baxter. So, yeah, I mean, again, I think it just depends. I mean, how North Allegheny shows up and responds. But, yeah, right now you got to ride Butler's hot hand going into it. Section 4, we had the matchup between Waynesburg and Cannon-McMillan. Waynesburg defeats Cannon-McMillan 55-10. Just kind of reminding folks, I think, hey, we're the returning WPIAL state champs, and we've come to wrestle. So at Peters Township, it will be Section 4, Bethel Park against Waynesburg, Cannon-McMillan against Peters Township. Do we get a rematch of last week and see more of the same?
Yeah, I would expect so. When they did wrestle Cannon-Mac and Waynesburg certainly made a statement like, hey, we're still Waynesburg, we're still returning a whole heck of a lot of talent. Now Cannon-Mac was missing some, they were missing some of their guys, and whether they're able to come back or not for the next time around, it's to be seen. But I think Waynesburg, kind of like years past, I think they're going to win the Section 4 title with not much of an issue. I do think it'll be a Waynesburg Cannon-Mac rematch in the finals there. The question for me is, the winner of Section 2 and seeing, Waynesburg match up with a Latrobe or a Connellsville, that's going to be a real treat, So I know Waynesburg's feeling pretty good beating Cannon-Mac as they did, but it's Section 2 is going to have something to say about that, right?
Absolutely, no doubt about it. In AA, Section 1 will be at Best Center. Jefferson Morgan against Burgestown. Fort Cherry against Best Center. Fort Cherry's in despite their loss to Washington. They lost 34-33. That was the only one that I recall seeing that was a three-way tie. Fort Cherry, Washington, and Chartiers Houston all having the same record. And Fort Cherry gets in thanks to the most matches won. It was the second criteria to get into the team tournament. So Fort Cherry's in, but all signs point to our matchup of Burgestown and Best Center here in Section 1.
Yeah, and we've been talking about this for a while. This matchup with Burgestown and Best Center, and Best Center obviously having a big win over Mount Pleasant. Burgestown just continuing to dominate as they have been throughout the year. Best Center though, they're very tough in certain weight classes, right? And it's how those other guys are going to compete against a Burgestown team, that is pretty stacked, and pretty balanced, right? I look at Burgestown much like I look at Latrobe, and there's not many holes, if any, right? So Best Center though made a statement, I think, against Mount Pleasant, regardless of who was in the lineup for Mount Pleasant or not. I think they made a statement in that win. So Best Center, Burgestown, I think you're looking at two of the top teams in the WPIAL potentially going at it here in the Section 1.
Yeah, I think the key with Burgestown is because they don't have any holes, you got to get bonus, and it's just hard to get bonus on because every weight class they have a good wrestler. So to get those bonus, which is like Best Center, that's where their strength is, right? They have so many studs. I mean, they have a good team throughout, but they have a lot of studs that get them bonus points in each match. Can those guys do that against a Burgestown? I'm not sure that they can.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's where I think Burgestown wins the match.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it before from Burgestown where that's been the case, right? Those big guns kind of showing up and doing the things that they're supposed to do, and I don't know though. Best Center they really impressed me with that win against Mount Pleasant. So I'm not writing them off quite yet, and I think it's going to come down to, it's certainly not going to be a blowout either way. It's going to be probably a 10, 15 point match at the most between the two.
Section 2, Laurel defeated Freedom 42-33 to win the subsection title. So on Wednesday, it'll be at Quaker Valley. It'll be Montour against Laurel and Freedom against Quaker Valley. Question here, can any of those three teams challenge Quaker Valley?
Yeah, that's the question, and I think the answer is no. I think Quaker Valley is just, much. We look at the difference between them and Burgettstown. Burgettstown is very balanced. They have a few really, really tough guys. Quaker Valley has some studs, right? But they have some areas where they have some holes, right? But their studs are going to carry them through, where I think they're going to win the Section 2 title without much of an issue. But I still think that, on the grand scheme of things, they're still trying to play catch up, I think, a little bit with a Burgettstown, Burrell, or Best Center, just based on kind of what I've seen. I don't know, again, who's going to be in, who's not, right? Individually, who's going to be in, who's not for each of those teams. But really, I think Quaker Valley wins Section 2 and then gets set up nicely for the district championship.
Yeah, I'm going to be interested to see where they end up seeding Quaker Valley, just because if they go in and they do what they need to do against Freedom and then potentially, let's say, Laurel, I mean, the thing is they're not facing the challenges that a Burgettstown, Best Center, or Mount Pleasant, Burrell have. Section 3, it's going to be at Mount Pleasant, so Burrell won't be able to host this one, and they're going to have a challenge. Southmoreland will take on Burrell, Knock will take on Mount Pleasant, but we're finally going to get to see where Burrell stands with the top 5 in AA with Mount Pleasant.
Yeah, I mean, this is it, right? This is the start of their defending title here, and it doesn't come easy, right? And how I didn't look this up, and I highly doubt you did either. But when was the last time Burrell did not host a section championship? That's my question. It
alternates every other year between B and A. So
well, yeah, you're right, it does. But when it's their turn to host, I can't remember a time when they haven't hosted. When they've always hosted, right? I think Pearl is their road is tough, right? Southmoreland's not going to be an easy match. I think Mount Pleasant makes it into the finals there, and again, who's in the lineup, who's not, right? For Mount Pleasant, and same with Burrell. Can they get Damian Barr in the lineup? Can they get guys flexible in weight? Can Cooper Hornack float between 13 and 20? Because those are going to be some key chess moves between Mount Pleasant and Burrell, because what Dayton Pitzer's going to do, right? What those types of wrestlers are going to bring to the table. They're going to get bonus points in some weight classes. So the question I have is who's in the lineup for Mount Pleasant, and where are people at weight-wise with Burrell? Look, Burrell's got something. There's something to water up there, man. They find ways to win, so I would not be surprised if they come away with a section championship here from Section 3.
It's going to be interesting how it all plays out, because starting here in AA, when you look at the seeds of how this is going to go, you have, if Burgettstown, let's say Burgettstown and Burrell win, it becomes easy, right? Maybe you just put Burrell 1, Burgettstown 2, Quaker Valley 3, and you let Best Center, Mount Pleasant wrestle again for 4 or 5. Or the Burgettstown wins and Mount Pleasant wins, and now things get interesting, right? Because then it's like Best Center beat Mount Pleasant, so now you got Burgettstown, Best Center probably 1-2, Mount Pleasant 3, Burrell 4. So now you're talking about a potential Burgettstown Burrell matchup in the semis as opposed to the finals. Best Center wins over Burgettstown. There's a number of different scenarios, and I think the whole wrench into it is where you put Quaker Valley into that mix, right? Because if you have the 2 section champs 1-2, whether it's Burgettstown, Mount Pleasant, Burgettstown, Burrell, whoever it is, then who do you put as that 3? So I think AA is just, the results are going to be, the easy way would be Burgettstown and Burrell win it, because then it's pretty easy to seed. But if they don't, it's going to be tough because of that Best Center win over Mount Pleasant.
Yeah, I mean, well, maybe we'll bring Phil Mary on next week to talk about the seeding, right?
I think we're gonna have to.
You're right. I think we're gonna have to. So, yeah, I'm not sure, and I will have a better understanding, and I can tell you what my seeds would be after this week and see where we're at. But, Mount Pleasant, if they win and they had that loss to Best Center and Burgettstown wins, Burgettstown's obviously clearly the one. The question, like you said, is Quaker Valley. Where are you going to stick Quaker Valley? Should they win their section? So there's going to be a lot of debating going on with the seeding committee about where they should put, a champion versus a runner-up based on, strength of schedule or just, the strength of that section. So yeah, it's never easy, but that's why we love Phil Murray and he's able to sort it all out, make everyone happy.
Yeah, I just think that best center win was huge. I mean, I know Mount Pleasant was without 3 starters, so we'll see how much that plays into the conversation. But I know the committee's really big on, who won in those dual matches throughout the season. And, a Burgestown win likely, unless Burrow wins. Burrow's the number 1 seed. But if Burgestown wins, then you gotta put best center, unless again, I guess if Mount Pleasant wins as well as Burgestown, I just don't see how you'd see it any other way. But AAA, I think we do have an idea, right? Waynesburg, provided they win, and that's the expectation is they will. They'll be the 1, and I think the 2, 3 are Latrobe, Connellsville. It doesn't matter who wins; they're going to be the 2 and the 3. And then I think from there, your 4, 5 are likely to be whoever wins the sections out of Section 3 and Section 1. So, I mean, I'd have to go back to see if any of them have wrestled as far as Franklin Regional, Kiski, North Allegheny, Butler, all those teams. But I think, the 2 winners of those sections are probably 4, 5.
Yeah, I think that's a safe assumption, right? And I agree with you. I think should Waynesburg and Latrobe win, I think it's clearly Waynesburg, Latrobe, Connellsville. However, that's pretty much etched in stone. I feel like it's those other ones where you're like, okay, how is this going to shake out? Where's that 4 going to be, and what's that 5, 6 going to look like? So yeah, I mean, again, we'll have a much better understanding after we see the rubber meet the road here in just a few days.
Well, wanted to thank Shawn Taylor of West Allegheny for joining us on the show earlier today. And Jeff, we're now essentially into postseason action. We got section championships on Wednesday, and then the brackets will come out likely Thursday, and we'll have it for you here this time next week. We'll break down the bracket, get you set for the team tournament, and we'll have WPIAL Team Tournament action coming up for you this time next week. So it should be a lot of fun, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly looking forward to it. I'll be at Latrobe this week, and this weekend we're streaming the Ultimate Warrior tournament up at West Branch. So, I don't know if there's any WPIAL teams there. There might be. Ambridge is there. Bentworth is there. I don't think there's any other District 7 teams up there, but yeah, we're gonna be streaming the quarterfinals, semis, and finals of the Ultimate Warrior tournament up at West Branch. So there should be a lot of good wrestling. We're gonna have Wyalusing there, Mifflin County, Central Mountain, Balduo area, Clearfield, Hickory. There's gonna be a lot of state champions, Jaden Pepe, Louis Gill, Dalton Perry. There's gonna be a lot of heavy hitters there. So it's gonna be a lot of fun. But before that, we're gonna hit Latrobe and see who comes out there in Section 2. I can't wait for that one.
Yeah, same here. I'm really excited for it, and I think we'll have a lot to talk about. I'm really excited, honestly, for the AA ones too. Burgestown Best Center, Mount Pleasant, Burrell. See how they finish out, and honestly how they're going to seed it depending on those results. So should be a lot of fun. We'll find out, Wednesday night, and then obviously Thursday the committee's going to have. We'll see if they have an easy job or if their hands are full and they have a lot of conversations.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Phil, we can't give Phil too much of an easy job. So we got to make it a little bit difficult for him. So, maybe we'll throw some wrenches in there.
That's right. I guess we'll find out. For Jeff Upson, I'm Greg Warnock. Appreciate everyone listening and watching in to WarUp on the WPIAL.